Before we get to the decision, before we get to LeBron James super teams and a $2.8 billion wealth transfer, we need to go back to where the architecture was drawn. Because every heist has a blueprint, and the blueprint for this one was signed 24 years before most of you knew LeBron's name.
The answer to the question everybody wants to know. LeBron, what's your decision?
In this fall, man, this is very tough. In this fall, I'm going to take my talents to South Beach and join the Miami Heat.
Miami Heat. That was the conclusion you woke up with this morning.
That was the conclusion I woke up with this morning.
July 8, 2010, ESPN dedicated an entire hour of primetime television to one man announcing where he would work. 49 years earlier, that hour had belonged to the moon landing. Now it belonged to a basketball player from Akron, Ohio. The nation watched for 57 minutes. They waited for the word, and when it came, South Beach. The country behaved like a country. Dan Gilbert wrote his letter in Comic Sans. The font choice was not incidental. It was the emotional register of an entire media narrative. Juvenile, feverish, personal. The story was cast immediately. LeBron James had betrayed his city. He was selfish. He was a villain. He was a man running away from his responsibilities. Let's be precise. When the country debated the morality of the decision, the architects of the league's collective bargaining structure were in a boardroom. They were not angry. They were not shocked. They were checking their watches and annotating their playbook. LeBron James in 2010 was the most valuable basketball player on the planet. In a genuinely open labor market, absent the artificial salary constraints we broke down in episode 2, conservative estimates place his market value north of $150 million for the contract period. He signed for $96 million. He accepted a $54 million reduction before he unpacked a single box in Miami. The decision was not an act of greed. The decision was a man doing the only thing the system allowed him to do: move. Because he could not be paid what he was worth, he could at least try to win. The architects understood this. They designed it this way. LeBron James was not a revolutionary in the summer of 2010. He was a beta test subject. The architects needed to know if a superstar's movement, his desperation to compete within a capped system, could be weaponized into a public narrative compelling enough to justify the next phase of extraction. They got their answer within 48 hours. The subject performed exactly as predicted. To understand the heist, you need to understand the armory, because the weapons used in 2011 were not new. They were perfected. When the American Basketball Association formed in 1967, it created something the NBA had never faced: competition for players. For the first time, a basketball player could walk across the street and find another employer. Salaries spiked. Owners panicked. When the leagues merged in 1976, the first priority before the new logo, before the schedule, before anything, was eliminating that competition. The players got 4 new franchises. The owners got a labor ceiling. The trade was never announced publicly. David Stern was 41 years old when he became a commissioner of the NBA in 1984. He inherited a league in genuine crisis. Franchises were financially hemorrhaging. Television ratings were in freefall, and the drug culture in locker rooms had become a legitimate public relations catastrophe. The league needed a reset. On October 31, 1983, the NBA and the Players Association agreed to the first hard salary cap in professional sports history. The public justification was survival. Small markets couldn't compete. The league would die without cost controls. The union accepted because they got 53% of basketball-related income in return. What the union did not fully model out, what no one modeled out in 1983, was what a salary cap does to the compounding value of individual labor over 40 years. You are not just capping a salary, you're capping a career, you're capping a legacy. You're setting a ceiling on wealth accumulation for every player who will ever sign a contract in this league forever. The cap was the foundation, but it needed a second layer. The 1998 lockout, 191 days, the longest work stoppage in NBA history at that point. The central outcome, buried beneath the noise of the missed games and the canceled All-Star weekend, was the introduction of the individual maximum contract. For context, Michael Jordan in the 1997-98 season made $33.1 million. Under the new individual maximum rules being negotiated that summer, he would have been capped at roughly $18 million. The owners told the union the maximum was about competitive balance, preventing one team from hoarding all the wealth. What it actually did was prevent any one player from capturing the true economic value of their labor. The max contract was not a ceiling on team spending, it was a ceiling on individual human worth. By 2010, these weapons had been in place for a combined 27 years. The salary cap, the escrow clawback, the individual maximum. They were not blunt instruments, they were a precision architecture, and they were about to be used for the biggest extraction the sport had ever seen. July 1, 2011, the NBA enters a lockout. The collective bargaining agreement has expired. The owners have decertified the working relationship with the players. 161 days, an entire preseason. Christmas games nearly canceled. The public narrative is already fully loaded. The story the media told was structurally consistent, almost suspiciously consistent. The Miami Heat, 3 superstars on one team, had broken competitive balance. Small markets like Indianapolis and Milwaukee couldn't survive in a league where stars simply chose each other. The lockout, the public was told, was a tragic but necessary correction. They lied. Let's do the math, because this is where the beta test became a blueprint. Under the 2005 collective bargaining agreement, the players received 57 cents of every dollar of basketball-related income generated by the league. This was the result of decades of union negotiation. It was not a gift, it was fought for. The architects wanted that number gone, but you can't simply announce a 7% pay cut to the most publicly visible labor force in American professional sports. You need a reason, you need a villain, you need a crisis. LeBron James, Dwayne Wade, and Chris Bosh gave them all 3. The players caved on December 8, 2011. The new BRI split 50% to the players, 50% to the owners. A clean, simple, symmetrical number that sounds fair and is, in practice, the single largest per-year wealth transfer in the history of professional basketball. 7% of basketball-related income. This is the distance between 57 and 50. On a revenue base of $4 billion, the approximate BRI at the time of the 2011 CBA, that 7% represents $280 million per year extracted from the players' collective share. The 2011 CBA ran for 10 years. Factor in annual revenue growth, factor in the television deal expansion. The conservative adjusted estimate for total extraction over the life of that agreement. $2.8 billion, transferred from the player's share to the owner's share, justified by LeBron James choosing to play basketball in Miami. Now, let's look at what that cost the man who they used as the justification. LeBron James won 2 NBA championships in Miami. He won 2 Finals MVP awards. He is, by most objective measurements, the reason the Miami Heat became the most commercially valuable franchise in the Eastern Conference during that period. And because of the BRI reduction he supposedly caused, he personally lost approximately $2.7 million every single year he played in that building. He built the vehicle, they kept the car. Numbers at this scale become abstract, so let's bring it to the ground. The individual maximum contract primarily hurts the Tier 1, the LeBrons, the Durants, the players whose market value is so astronomically beyond the cap ceiling that the math becomes grotesque. But the BRI cut hurts everyone, every player, every contract, every career. The veteran minimum contract, the floor salary paid to players at the bottom of the rosters, is calculated as a percentage of the salary cap, which is itself derived from BRI. When BRI share drops, cap growth slows. When cap growth slows, minimum salaries compress. A player on a veteran minimum in 2011, projecting his earnings over a 5-year career based on the pre-lockout trajectory, lost. In present value terms, somewhere between $800,000 and $1.2 million in career earnings. He is not in this story. His name is not on the marquee. He did not attend a press conference with pyrotechnics. He just played basketball for 6 years. And then he stopped, and then the career was over. And somewhere in that 6 years, approximately $1.3 million that should have been in his family's account was instead in a franchise valuation. The architects understood something the union's economists did not fully model: the compounding asymmetry between player career length and the owner asset holding period. The average NBA career is 4.5 years. The average franchise ownership tenure is decades. What looks like a small annual percentage cut to a player is, to an owner, an annuity. It compounds, it inflates the asset, it pays dividends every time someone sells a team. In 2016, the National Basketball Association signs a $24 billion national television deal with ESPN and Turner Sports. The salary cap, which had grown modestly for a decade, jumps 32% in a single off-season. A $24 million single-year increase. In one summer, 30 teams suddenly had extraordinary amounts of cap space. And Kevin Durant, the second-best basketball player in the world, joined the Golden State Warriors, who had just won 73 games in a season. The public reaction was uniform outrage. The game was ruined, competition was dead, the league had lost control. The narrative was immediate and overwhelming. The league had never been more in control, the asset had never been more valuable. Let's look at what actually happened. The Golden State Warriors doubled in value in 24 months. The average NBA franchise appreciated 50% in a 2-year window. This is not organic market growth. This is the financial product of concentrated stardom. Super teams are not a competitive problem. They are a marketing engine. The architects understood this. The media did not. Think about what the architects built over a 16-year period. First, they used the individual maximum to prevent stars from capturing their true market value, keeping player costs artificially suppressed. Then they used the BRI cut to widen the revenue gap, extracting an additional $280 million per year from the collective labor share. And finally, they allowed super teams to form, because super teams create media narratives. Media narratives drive television deals, and television deals inflate franchise valuations. The players took the reputational cost of ruining competitive balance. The owners took the financial benefit of those same players concentrating stardom into marketable storylines. Kevin Durant's legacy was debated on television for 3 consecutive years. The owners of the Golden State Warriors gained $1.3 billion in franchise value. One of the parties was arguing about basketball, the other was buying a second yacht. The beta test was not a one-time experiment, it was a proof of concept. And since 2011, the architects have run the same play with increasing efficiency. The second apron is the most sophisticated version of this weapon yet. It doesn't require a lockout, it doesn't require a villain. It's a permanent structural mechanism built into the CBA that makes it financially catastrophic for any franchise to maintain a team capable of genuine championship competition. To you, those are championship contenders. To the architects, they are controlled demolition sites. The second apron was not designed to create parity. It was designed to force teams to liquidate their most expensive assets, their best players, and return to what we called in episode 1, the barbell economy. A league of cheap young players on rookie deals at the bottom, untouchable maximum contract superstars at the top, and an eliminated middle class that once housed the craftsmen, the veterans, the players who made winning basketball actually work. LeBron James has earned $479 million in career salary. Every news segment about his wealth treats this as the number, the ceiling, the proof that the system works. Remove the individual maximum contract, remove the 2011 BRI cut that his movement was used to justify. Model his true labor market value across a 22-year career against the revenue he personally generated for the franchise, the television partners, and the league's global brand. $1 billion, conservative. That's not a conspiracy theory. That's a discounted cash flow analysis applied to a labor market without artificial ceilings. $500 million transferred, legally, structurally, quietly, while the world argued about whether he was a traitor to Cleveland. He was not the one playing the game, he was the game board. Most people just watch the game. We look at what the game was designed to cost and who decided the price.